Welcome. As we discussed in the raw materials lecture, fruits are an obvious choice for providing us with fermentable sugars. Indeed, ripe fruit will ferment all by itself on the ground if left alone. Clearly, this also means creating a fermented liquid that we can then distill is also pretty accessible. Pretty much everywhere fruit is grown, especially domesticated fruits bred for higher sugar contents, we're going to find spirits made from them. We'll discuss how we process fruits for creating spirits, and at this level, we're only going to introduce and discuss a few of these spirits from around the world. From France are Cognac, Armagnac, and Calvados, our Italian grappas, and pisco from Chile and Peru. Let's go. A large number of plant species make fruit. These plant species often make fruit every year and for many years. Due to their design of being attractive to animals who help with their procreation, fruits are high in sugar, with juicy flesh, and tend to have seeds in them. This easily accessible sugar does come with a cost, and that is the ease in which it can spoil. Rotten fruit and spoiled juice makes for poor spirits with off character. Most of our fruits are crushed and pressed, then fermented and distilled, usually in close proximity to help prevent that spoiling. Or for our less juicy fruits, they are macerated or smashed up and then infused into a neutral spirit and then redistilled. A clear choice for a base for distillation are grapes. They've been fermenting on their own for millennia, and we have been fermenting them since before written history. While grapes come in white and black varieties, we tend to use white varietals more often, as white wine production has some advantages, which we'll get to in a minute. For instance, in Cognac, which is a cool, wet region of France where red grapes won't even ripen, distillers use highly acidic, rather bland fermented grapes that do not make especially desirable wines. They're just too lean and tart. Here, much of the brandies take their character from maturation processes rather than the raw materials flavors. Other region where it's very warm and the grapes lose much of their acid and the wines are then unbalanced, these are often the base for brandies as well. Brandies are the name of distilled wine, regardless of region. In other areas like Chile and Peru, highly aromatic grape varieties like Muscat are used to create flavorful piscos that usually don't do much maturation at all. For these white grapes, what happens is the fruit is picked, then crushed and pressed to produce a sugary grape juice or must. An acidic must will help preserve it until it can be fermented, where then the alcohol will help preserve it until distillation. Regardless, producers want to move quickly to minimize the opportunities for spoilage. In red grapes, the grapes are usually crushed and the skins are left in contact with the juice during fermentation, as this is where red wine gets its color. After fermentation, the wine is pressed, leaving behind some skins that still have some alcohol stuck in there. In our white grapes, the skins do not have alcohol in them, but do have some sugar or juice still left in that pulp. Either way, that pulp is called pomace. A pomace brandy is called grappa, and the red wine pomace can go straight to the still, whereas the white grape pomace will be diluted and fermented before going into the still. While the end result is a clear, dry spirit, they tend to taste quite different depending on their source material. Now, the way white grapes are processed is a similar process to how we process apples and pears. We smash them up and press the juice out. We don't tend to make grappa from these skins. Our apple and pear wines or ciders are then distilled. This is very popular in the Normandy region of France, as well as in the US, where you find applejack. Any juiceable fruit can be made into a fermented liquid and then distilled, but the ones we mentioned are really the main commercially produced and traded ones. In more advanced classes, we'll go into some of the others. Many European traditions see fruit mixed into a neutral spirit, like vodka, and then distilled similar to the way gin is created, with various botanicals that could include fruits. But these are more like a fruit-flavored vodka than a fermented fruit brandy, so we won't be discussing them at this time. One thing to note, if you remember our introduction to distillation lecture, our fermented liquid here tends to possess nice fruit flavors, so distilling at lower rectification is generally preferred. This has meant pot stills tend to be used for distillation. Also, if you remember the maturation lecture, those fresh flavors are often not helped out by oak aging, at least not in new oak. Inert vessels are often used to get just a little bit of smoothing out or rounding off of the character. The large exception to this is in the case of our cognacs and some Armagnacs, where the fairly neutral base wines are more of a canvas to show off differing aging regimens. Indeed, cognac has mandated aging requirements, and I say some Armagnacs because in Armagnac they do both aged and unaged brandies, as you'll see in a minute. France is home to the world's most famous fruit spirits, the grape-based Cognac, and also grape-based Armagnac, and the apple and pear-based Calvados. Starting with Cognac, which is the most famous brandy in the world. The grapes must be grown in the region of Cognac, and there are some specific subregions here as well that we'll cover. The most widely used grape is Uni Blanc, but it doesn't make a very aromatic base wine. But you do get some telltale aromas of grape and violet in the spirits that are made from it. Now, grapes are quite sensitive to their growing climates and even microclimates, so often the region will show on the label. The entire harvest through distillation is controlled as well. This ensures the juice and the wines aren't sitting around after April 1st. Everything has to be done harvest in the fall, and distillation must be complete by the following April 1st. They also must be aged at least 2 years in an oak barrel, and it's very common in cognac for the spirit to start in a new oak barrel and then finish in an older oak barrel. Some will be aged for decades in oak and then move to a demijohn before being crafted into a blend that may feature dozens of differently aged spirits sourced from multiple subregions. If you remember the maturation lecture, cognac is also where barrels will be moved, or the spirit within them will be moved to humid or drier conditions, warm to cool, new oak and to old oak, all as part of the maturation process. And before bottling, cognacs are often slightly sweetened to an off-dry level, say 10 to 25 grams per liter, and have a little caramel coloring added. So let's go a little bit deeper into cognac production. This is one of Hennessy's pot stills used in cognac. If you were completely lost looking at this, you might want to jump over to the Introduction to Distillation lecture. A few parts are mandated by law, and some parts are custom for Hennessy's own quest for quality. Now, cognac law mandates direct heat. These are usually featured with gas burners inside the brick enclosures. Now, remember those Maillard reactions? Those are expected to show in cognacs. Now, the pot is inside the brick oven with the top of the pot having this distinct bulbous shape called a chapiteau that promotes some reflux, as you could imagine. It's also outside the oven, so it will be cooler, adding to the reflux. Then we have the col de sang, or the swan neck. Yes, it's a different swan neck than the swan necks we'll learn about in Scotland. This would be called the line arm on a Scottish still. It travels through that big bulb, which is actually a wine warmer holding the wine before it goes into the still. The vapors from the still are not in contact with that wine. It's just giving some heat to it on the way to a condenser, which must be a worm tub condenser. A worm tub condenser consists of a copper tube, which you can think of as the worm, and it circles in a coil around and around inside a tub or tank of continuously cooled water. This condenses the vapor back into a liquid, and we collect it as our new make spirit. Yes, there are some heads and tails and hearts and partial hearts deployed in these processes, but for now, we'll just deal with these, and those will continue on at a 300 level lecture. For now, just know these mandated parts and that this happens twice, or it's double pot distill. Now, with aging being so important in cognac, it's not surprising that age indications are always well presented on the labels in cognac. These will guarantee the minimum age or the youngest age of any spirit used in the blend. Our first is VS, or very special, with a minimum of 2 years of age. Our next is a very special old pale, or VSOP, with 4 years guaranteed minimum age, again of the youngest spirit in the blend. And our extra old, or XO, also called hordage, with a 10-year minimum age. You may also see a grape growing region on the label. Of the 6 regions, the most respected is Grand Champagne, with Petit Champagne and Borderie also often making an appearance on a label. This means 100% of the fruit came from those regions. And just to confuse things, Fine Champagne on the label means that at least 50% came from Grand Champagne and the rest came from Petit Champagne. A younger region than Cognac, located more inland and south, is Armagnac. Uni Blanc is also the main grape here, but we have some others that are used as well. Our Baco Blanc, which gives many Armagnacs a flavor of dried plum or prune character, and Folle Blanche, which is a very aromatic variety and will impart floral character to the spirit. We can use the pot stills that are mandated in nearby Cognac, but most use a pretty unique continuous column still, which has to have less than 18 plates, but often only has 5 or so. The few plates and the way they are run allows for a low ABV spirit with a lot of character. We have similar processes for blending and maturing as Cognac, except here VS is only 1 year and Blanche is only 3 months in an inert vessel, usually stainless steel. That fruity, vibrant character from Folle Blanche really fits this style, as it really doesn't need oak maturation character to work. There is no Blanche designation in Cognac. We have 3 subregions in Armagnac, but you really only see Basse Armagnac and Armagnac Ténérès on labels, which means 100% of the fruit was grown in that subregion. They also have an addition to the 10-year exo and hordage with a vintage designation. That all of those have to be 10 years of age, but in vintage, all of the fruit was harvested in the year that shows on the label. So we have no blending of different ages in the vintage. Now we also have the famous pear and apple brandy made in the north of France up in Normandy. It also has geographical restrictions. Apples are more widely used than the pears, and like Armagnac, they can use pot stills or those modified column stills with only a few plates. And likely due to the vibrant flavors in the raw materials, they tend not to use new oak or small oak barrels for maturation, but use large, previously used barrels. Now, there are some fruit-based spirits that we will dive deeper into in the 300 level lectures, but we do want to mention pisco from Chile and Peru. Coincidentally, they are fighting each other to see who gets to own the name and the production methods. They are fairly similar as they both use very aromatic grapes in their production, and they use pot stills. In Peru, there is no aging allowed at all, while occasionally in Chile there is some oak aging. Regardless, they both tend to produce spirits with a lively, vibrant character. The most famous pomace brandies are certainly grappas from Italy. They also usually don't see oak aging, although some are, and there's not a legal requirement one way or the other. They do almost always have some inert aging to make them a bit smoother. Even so, they tend to have a pretty intense character with floral fruit and a sharp texture. And around the world, brandy is produced, usually wherever wine is produced, including Spain, the US, South Africa, and Mexico. Then across Central Europe, distillers will use a wide range of fruits to either redistill or sometimes distill alone. These are often unaged, and clean, crisp styles show in these spirits. So after this lecture on fruit spirits, you should be familiar with how fruit is processed and turned into a fermented liquid. You should understand how Cognac is made and what information may be on the label and what that information means. You should be familiar with Armagnac and how its production differs from Cognac, as well as its specific labeling terms. Then what Calvados is, where it's made, and then we did discuss a couple of other styles and countries that make brandy. See you next time.